I wanted to play this from Prime Minister Netanyahu because he was speaking to really the American people yesterday in that joint session of Congress. That was not a speech to his own people. It was a speech in English. It was a speech in America at Congress. So it was for you and me and for even the protesters. He is trying to, again, try to educate some of these protesters about how absurd their protesting has become. Take a listen to Bite 14 from Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Well, I have a message for these protesters. When the tyrants of Tehran, who hang gays from cranes and murder women for not covering their hair, are praising, promoting, and funding you, you have officially become Iran's useful idiots.
And yet, well, we see this in the street often when they send the reporters out to talk to these individuals, and they ask questions about that. Well, how do you feel about supporting a group? I mean, we saw in the video that we played in some of the photos, not just Palestinian flags that they flew, by the way, where the American flags were, but Hamas flags, ISIS flags, just walking through the streets of Washington, D.C. I wonder, hey, where'd you get those flags from? But, okay, secondary to that is, do they not even realize who they actually are supporting? Like if they were in those countries, those are territories where Iran is in charge or Hamas is in charge, and you were to wear a gay pride shirt, you're in serious trouble, if not dead immediately. Certainly, if you were some kind of organizer or you were accused of some kind of behavior that way, you would be executed. And yet, it's those same kinds of liberal, kind of wacky protesters who are joining with these pro-Palestinian protesters in the streets who are much more hardcore. And right now they're accepting them, as Netanyahu said, as they're useful idiots. If they want to protest with us and make it look like our protests are more inclusive, sure, come along. But in fact, the first people they would turn on are you.
Well, and here's what is interesting as well, and this is from the elected Democrats in this country. You had the radical left, the squad members. You had Rashida Tlaib, who did attend the speech so that she could hold up a small sign in front of her the entire time that said war criminal. So she went there in protest, but she did attend the speech. But Senator Chris Murphy, who's not really on the Israel issue, someone you would expect to go full bore against Bibi Netanyahu, right. But he tweeted out, he kind of live tweeted during the speech, and he tweeted out around 3:30 yesterday. He said the speech was more of a commentary of U.S. politics rather than a path forward for Israeli and U.S. security. The suggestion that any American who objects to the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza is a Hamas sympathizer was way out of bounds. Now, that was during the speech. It's as if he didn't see anything that happened in the spring across college campuses across this country, where it was not just anti-Israel protest, it was pro-Hamas, pro-terror protest. But then just 5 hours later, he tweeted this, didn't take down the other one. I've seen some disturbing images coming out of today's protest at the Capitol. I'll always support Americans exercising their First Amendment rights, but pro-Hamas cheers and messages of hate and anti-Semitism have no place in our country, period. They're so blinded by their dislike of Bibi Netanyahu and so blinded by their party's stance at this time that he genuinely is able to keep both of these tweets up and not reference in the second one, the first one that says that there's no way, this is way out of bounds to suggest that these people are Hamas sympathizers, and later is saying that they have pro-Hamas cheers and messages of hate.
Right.
So which one is it, Senator Murphy?
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's been blind to these protests. These protests have been full this summer, that, and of course, in the school year. Really, I mean, this all started before the new year. So it was the real protest, I think, began really around December, January, like when people came back to school. Because initially, there was the shock of what had happened on October 7th. And I will tell you, it was very emotional going through that speech again, hearing that again, hearing some of our clients' names who did not survive, who did not live. One who was that person he referenced who was escaping Hamas and got caught up in a firefight and did not survive his escape. And, those kind of, they weren't just stories for us. Those were clients of ours and their families. And so I think he did a very good job as a reminder of what Israelis are dealing with every single day. Whether you're an Israeli who supports him politically or not, there is a lot of unity when it comes to in Israel, when it comes to, of course, defending themselves. I want to take your calls on this at 1-800-684-3110. This was a speech to the United States of America. It was two Republicans, two Democrats, two independents, and it was not, again, I thought the way he pointed out in the speech by saying, this is who makes up the IDF. And there was a Druze soldier who practices Islam. And there's the Ethiopian soldier who ran 8 miles onto the front lines to fight when the attack began, and when he heard the news about the attack and got to his soldiers first to make sure that base that was near the Gaza Strip was protected from that attack on October 7th. And so you got to see a different Israel than is ever depicted in the media. That's not an Israel that you usually think of unless you've been and noticed that there's a lot of very different looking people serving in the IDF with different backgrounds. But we'll take a call on this now. Let's go to Nancy in California on line 1. Hey, Nancy, welcome to Seculo. You're on the air.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I'm an ACLJ champion, and I listen to you guys every day.
Thank you, Nancy.
So I watched Netanyahu's speech twice last night. I was so impressed with it, I watched it again. And I took away so many takeaways from it as an American citizen. I loved it when he said, if Israel's hands are tied, America's hands are going to be next. So I think as Americans, we need to understand that this is so much more than just Israel versus Hamas. Yep. And I think Netanyahu was very clear in, kind of challenging us as Americans going, wake the heck up.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, what he said was, Will, he said that, I don't know if we have the sound pulled from it. I know he talked about the Abraham Accords, but and we'll get to that in a second because I want to talk about that even with Secretary Pompeo, who's coming up in our next segment of the broadcast. But he talked about how that every time they took out a Hamas branch or a Hamas soldier, that was one less terrorist who wanted to ultimately attack the United States of America. I mean, that's their goal. So when they take out these terror groups, they're not only protecting Israel from future attacks and more immediate attacks, they're also protecting the United States and our allies and our interest in that region from attacks in the future, because they are funded by the groups who are trying to spread these radical groups and connect with these radical groups around the world to attack Americans. And we heard that yesterday from Prime Minister Netanyahu. Was it Byte 32?
Yeah, let's play Byte 32.
That's why the mobs in Tehran chant death to Israel before they chant death to America. For Iran, Israel is first, America is next. So when Israel fights Hamas, we're fighting Iran. When we fight Hezbollah, we're fighting Iran. When we fight the Houthis, we're fighting Iran. And when we fight Iran, we're fighting the most radical and murderous enemy of the United States of America.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. When we are fighting Iran, we're fighting the most radical and murderous enemy of the United States of America. And their number one goal is the destruction of the United States of America. And, of course, a nuclear program. We saw how the U.S. was able to assist Israel in stopping that barrage of drone attacks from Iran. But we've seen some escalation there and some de-escalation there. I just want to remind all of you as we go into this next break, and we want to continue to take your phone calls too at 1-800-684-3110, that our Life and Liberty Drive deadline is in less than a week, and we're still short of our goal. But we also know that Israel faces a dangerous threat, and now that threat is here. Yesterday we saw that Hamas is coming, spray-painted across our national monuments. Today, as we mobilize our offices in Jerusalem and across the globe to defend Israel from this growing threat, we need your support. Have your gift doubled at aclj.org. Right now, the ACLJ is preparing to file what may be the most important brief we've ever filed in defense of Israel. Our deadline to file at the International Criminal Court against its attempt to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is just days away. And we actually have the official order granting the ACLJ's request to file that brief. So we know that brief will be filed with the International Criminal Court and accepted by the International Criminal Court. But we can't continue to fight this. I mean, this is a worldwide fight without you. Have your gift doubled in the final days of our Life and Liberty Drive. When you support the work of the ACLJ, you stand with Israel. $10 becomes $20, $50 becomes $100, and so on. Please go to aclj.org right now and have your tax-deductible gift doubled now to keep us in this fight. Again, a major filing at the International Criminal Court. That deadline is coming up. And again, before we filed, we made sure the International Criminal Court was going to accept that filing so that others would see the arguments we make against being able to bring these charges against Prime Minister Netanyahu and other Israelis. You know, we've defended America's interest there before. We've defended Israel's interest there before. But this, I think, is the most important because we've seen Israel come under legal attack, we call it lawfare, internationally like never before. So this is a time to support the work of the ACLJ, a group that needs those resources to fight and stand with Israel wherever we can. So donate today and double the impact of your donation at aclj.org.